I sort of diversified and said, what other kind of performers, could I bring in? So, at one point in the 70s, I brought Ravi Shankar to Montreal. Ravi Shankar is the father of Nora Jones. And that was really interesting because when I announced that concert, I received a call from Robert Charlebois. And he said, look, Sheldon or Mr. Kagan, I'm a real fan of Ravi Shankar. Would you mind if I could meet him? So we set up for Robert Charlebois to meet Ravi Shankar at Place des Arts. And that was kind of neat. And I ended up bringing Ravi Shankar back to Montreal 3 times over a period of 5 years. He was an amazing person. I brought Donovan to Montreal, and he was really an amazing fellow. I brought him to the Queen Elizabeth Hotel, and we set him up in a ballroom for a sort of a theater style. And for people to get up so close to Donovan was amazing. He was really a lot of fun. We spent hours and hours talking. One of the most amazing performers that I brought to Montreal was Artie Shaw. Now, this man had an incredible history. He was married 6 times. He was married to very famous movie stars, Lana Turner, Ava Gardner. He had retired, and I heard so many stories about him from other performers and other members of my family. I was able to reach his manager in Los Angeles and ask him to come out of retirement to come do a concert for me in Montreal, which he accepted. And as with all my performers, I went to the airport to pick him up. When he came to Montreal to do this concert for me, he was 73 years old. We picked him up, and I was going to invite him to take him to his hotel, or would you like to go for supper or to relax? And he came back and said, well, Sheldon, why don't we go to your house? Okay, let's go to my house, but I would have been happy to take him anywhere he wanted to go. Came inside the house, and I said, can I offer you something? He says, do you play cards? And I said, well, I play a little bit of cards. He said, well, why don't we play some cards and relax, and then maybe you can order a pizza or some chicken. Wow, this was a very different performer than some of the performers that had these writers telling me what kind of champagne they wanted and what kind of food they wanted and how they wanted it all cooked. I said, sure. So we started playing cards, and he said, if you'd like, do you want to invite any neighbors by? And I was in Dorval, and at that stage it was my neighbors were quite senior, and I'm sure they were all very well aware of Artie Shaw. So I called up and I said to Neil and Dorothy across the road, if you'd like to come by, I have Artie Shaw here, and why don't you come and meet him? And they said, yeah, sure, you have Artie Shaw sitting in your house. I mean, we grew up with Artie Shaw. Artie Shaw to these were like the Beatles. Yeah, we're going to come play cards. I said, trust me, cross the road and come on over. And I ended up having like 8 neighbors sitting at my dining room table playing cards with Artie Shaw. I mean, this was an unbelievable day. I mean, they were all pinching themselves. This can't be possible. And he was like that. He was just a really nice, good, down-to-earth man. We had a wonderful time. I mean, it was the wee hours of the morning before I took him down to his hotel, and he did the concert for me the next day, and just it was really a pleasure, from A to Z to deal with a human being like that. On the other side, there was only one bad story of one bad performer, and that was Miles Davis. And I had brought Miles Davis to Montreal, and it was great news. He was very, very popular, and I completely sold out Place des Arts. But I had concerns. There was stories on the media a few days before that he had some drug issues, and I said, oh my God. So I called up his agent and said, look, there's publicity out there about Miles Davis and drugs, and please don't, talk to him. Don't come across the border with something, because he's going to get arrested and he's not going to be at my concert. He said, well, all right, we'll take care of it. As he came out of customs and introduced myself, and, rather than say hello, he said, hey, you must be Moneybags. And I said, excuse me? He says, you got my money? I said, well, you mean your money for your concert? He said, yeah, where's my money? I said, well, I signed a contract with your agent. 50% was paid up front, and 50% is to be given to you at the concert tomorrow night, which I'm prepared to do. If you feel better, I'll give it to you during intermission. He said, okay. And at that point, I certainly didn't invite him to go out for dinner. I took him right to his hotel, and I'll see you tomorrow night, Mr. Davis. Another amazing story is in 1972, I had Delaney, Bonnie, Billy Preston, and John Hammond booked to do the Dawson College Winter Carnival, and I was organizing the concert on their behalf. And I received a phone call from a gentleman that introduced himself as Clive Davis. And Clive Davis then was a very prominent person. In latter years, of course, he was the producer for Celine Dion, whole Whitney Houston, and 30 other performers. In that telephone conversation, he said that he had a new band in the States that was now part of CBS Records. And because John Hammond was also CBS Records, he would wonder if I would do him a favor and replace John Hammond with this new band. And he told me who they were, and at that point the name meant nothing to me. But he said, look, I'll give them to you for $500, and it would be a personal favor if you do this for me. So I did it, and in the end, the band was Loggins and Messina, Kenny Loggins and Jim Messina, who totally blew everyone away. I also had another idea at that point of doing something for singles. And I started something in 1971 called Singles Bashes. I rented the Windsor Hotel and advertised if you're single and looking to come out to a great party, come to the Sheldon Kagan Singles Bash. And I drew like 600 people. So from 1971 to maybe 1979, I did singles bashes maybe 5 or 6 times a year at different hotels, and that was great. I remember in 1972 the Russians were playing the Canadians New Year's Eve, and I organized a New Year's Eve party, and it was a singles bash, and tickets sold out like instantly. And because the hockey came into play, I rented some screens, of course, and showed the hockey game, and so many people ended up trying to come to the party anyways that we took one of the screens and tilted it out onto the street on Peel Street, because there was hundreds of people standing outside the hotel watching that famous Russia-Canadian hockey game. So for years I did the singles parties as well as the entertainment.